Hello, lovelies, and welcome to my second show. This week we will be discussing what is an empath, as well as what the differences are between a psychic empath, which is what we usually mean by empath when talking in the pagan, Wiccan, witch, New Age, all those worlds, and a highly sensitive / empathetic person. In the next week's show, we will continue the discussion on empaths, and it will be, are you an empath and how can you protect yourself and create boundaries? That also might be a good show even if you're not an empath, but a highly sensitive, very empathetic person as well, because those people need to create boundaries and protect themselves in very similar manners, even though, as you will learn later, there is a difference. But the effects are still the same in the long run. So, first, let's discuss what an empath is. An empath is someone who is affected by other people's energies. Keep that in mind. It's their energies, their auras, and have an innate ability to intuitively feel and perceive others. So it's not picking up on various facial cues or body language or things that you have said, or knowing that you're going through, that another person is going through a situation. They just intuitively can tell. Your life is unconsciously influenced by others' desires, and it's not just limited to emotions. We can perceive physical sensitivities and illnesses. We may not know what exactly is wrong with the person right off the top of our head, but we can feel that another person or animal or being, whatever, is going through something. As well as spiritual urges. We just know the motivations and intentions of other people are either good, bad, in between. However, sometimes we can be blocked from so much going on because we tend to be also caregivers. And so are the highly sensitive, empathetic people tend to be caregivers. So though they perceive it in a different way, which you will find out later on, but one of the overlaps is we both tend to be caregivers. And because of that fact, we might ignore things that we know because we want to help the other person so bad, and that's why we may end up in bad situations, as an example. You're either an empath or you're not. It's not a trait that is learned. Though, I believe that anybody and everybody can have some type of psychic ability, and we just kind of close it off because of societal behaviors or things that were taught, or we just didn't have the correct environment to be able to nurture those gifts. An empath, no matter what, that is one of those psychic abilities that is going to be there, no matter what the environment. The extremity of its power, though, I personally, don't take my word for it, but I personally believe has to do with the environment and nature. Anyways, we are always open to process other people's feelings and energies. Even if we're a little blocked, we still are able to, which means that we feel, and in most, if not all cases, unless we're completely blocked, take on the emotions and pains of others. This is why we might come off as shut down in some situations or awkward socially and not know how to bring up something. An example with me as an empath is I had a friend who was going through something with their family, and I awkwardly just brought it up, and it was probably the wrong time to do it, but I could just feel that it was eating them up, and now um, we have problems because of that. Like you just because they didn't want to talk about it, but you can it just eats at you because you can literally like feel and take it on. We experience things like chronic fatigue, environmental sensitivities, and unexplained aches and pains daily. Many are ironically high diagnosed with illnesses such as fibromyalgia, and things of that nature, high anxiety disorders like ADHD, a lot of things like that. These are more likely to be contributed to the outside influences and not so much ourselves at all. And with fibromyalgia, for example, which I have been diagnosed, they still don't know exactly where it comes from. They know it comes from stress, that like the flare-ups are induced by stressors and the environment, and that with most cases it's been the illness has come on via trauma, which you will hear later on how that's tied into empaths themselves. So I think there's I personally, again, don't take my word for it, but I personally, from my own experience, think that fibromyalgia is greatly tied to somebody that's an empath. And yeah. Anyways, back to explaining what an empath is. We essentially are walking around in this world accumulating karma, emotions, and energies of other people if we are not taking care of ourselves by blocking and learning boundaries. They tend to be achievers highly with anything that they really want to do, which tends to be more in the healing arts or psychological or teaching fields or working with animals. It can take a while for us to handle compliments. We're not very good at them. I know I personally get really, really awkward with a compliment because I don't really know how to react. We're not very good with our own emotions and how to react to situations. We're highly expressive in all areas of emotional connection and talk openly, and quite frankly, we get attached to people very quickly. Some may think empaths are kind of psychologically histrionic, um, and you'll see why when I continue my explanation. We can also be kind of the opposite of what I just said, and I think it's from taking on too much or being around too many people, because we get stressed very easily. We become reclusive, unresponsive at best. Some of us are very good at blocking out others, which is not really a bad thing in all reality. And especially for an empath that's learning how to deal with their gift, we struggle with a shit ton of emotions from others and then our own feelings, and it all builds up, so we go into seclusion. Because we have a tendency to openly feel what is outside us more than ourselves, it becomes chaos in our mind. And that's why we're so good at maybe like being able to figure out what's wrong with people psychologically. Like I can explain what other people are going through better than what I myself am going through. I will intellectualize my emotions while being very good with other people's. We are typically passive, peaceful beings, but if surrounded around a lot of negativity and chaos and violence, we can become violent or explosive ourselves because, again, we might just take on so much and not express it. Um, this is another reason why we need to protect ourselves and build boundaries. We hate confrontation, try to avoid it. Uh, some might curl up or just feel like exploding. We apologize constantly, but because we take on so much, and if not protected, as I just mentioned, we can have no self-control and say harsh things and feel way too much guilt and either avoid the person or apologize way too much, shut down. And that is especially true when you're around a very chaotic, violent, unstable person, because we literally take on what is going on with them. We don't just empathize or sympathize with them. We literally take that on what is wrong with them. If we hold on to all this energy for too long, it can make us very susceptible to illnesses such as PTSD. A lot of empaths are highly predisposed for trauma, as well as other mental instabilities. Especially if we're around a lot of people who have mental illnesses, we will take them on. As I mentioned before, you will find empaths working with people, animals, or nature with a true, real passion and dedication to help them. If they're teachers or caretakers, they are very tireless. They will never give up, restless, for the environment, what's with it, and everything that comes with it. May even go into the revolutionary route. They're very many become volunteers. We're always willing to give up our personal time to help others, and we tend to then again avoid our own issues and problems, which then leads us to developing, as I said before, illnesses if we are not protecting ourselves. And with some empaths, after years and years and years of being caretakers and doing this type of work, and then as well taking it on in our personal lives, they eventually break or become explosive, which again is why we need to learn to protect ourselves. Empaths are very good at being storytellers. We have endless imaginations. Are old romantics at heart and very gentle. This is why when it comes to romantic relationships, we get attached typically somewhat easy unless we are protecting ourselves and have that big boundary. Then it's kind of either a push and pull, or we have like this big wall that you need to break through. They also are keepers of ancestral knowledge, family history. Like, we just know about at least one side of our family. We just know about everything. We have a tendency to know more about our past lives as well than other people. Music has a huge effect on empaths as well. Can change their emotional state and or be sending them messages. They also have vivid lucid dreams. All of this is going to go more in detail on the Are You an Empath video. People can also pick up who is an empath, and these type of people are either emotional vampires, narcissists, or other psychics, or just really the highly sensitive beings might be able to pick up that you're an empath unconsciously, subconsciously, or somebody that's in a lot of trouble themselves might reach out to you because they just know. Because not only do you just know about them, but you're also kind of vibrating this energy that you are a caretaker, you are a healer, you can help. You will be told a lot. This is one of the examples I will be explaining in the next video more in depth as well. I never told anyone this, but I feel like I can be open around you. And I never felt comfortable saying such and such about myself. I've been hiding this. And then they might even do this in a whole room full of other people, but it doesn't matter because you're there, and they might have just met you. That can happen all the time. Random animals that are either injured or just out there, not domesticated, will just come up to you. Like one time I had a coyote come up to me while I was walking the dogs down our driveway. I live, like right now, I moved back with my parents to have my child. I used to live in Milwaukee and I moved back to Manitowoc, but when I was living here as a teenager, or young, I'd say 19 or so, I was walking the dogs and a coyote came and sat and let me pet it. I mean, how many people can say that, right? Not many. Now, okay, the differences between an empath, or the psychic form of empathy, and a highly sensitive person slash empathetic person. I know I ramble on and on. Okay, so the psychic form of empathy, aka an empath, should not be confused with the basic human emotion of empathy. A lot of people, actually most people, can feel empathy for another person at a given time without necessarily being a psychic empath. The main difference, going back to my explanation of an empath, is that someone who is a psychic empath picks up on non-visual, non-verbal cues about a person, detecting energy fields, auras, etc. I just simply know. Now, a highly sensitive person or an empathetic person, can tell by looking at you that, oh God, you had a horrible day. And yeah, they might get drained as well and have a lot of the side effects we get, but the way in which they pick up on a person's situation is completely different. And we tend to be natural healers even without training, though a lot of us go forth with the training. A lot of severely empathetic, highly sensitive people will also go into the same fields, but they don't have that extra little bit of just natural knowing. So moving forward, we're kind of going into a world of psychology and spirituality and the crossovers and the differences between certain things. Because empathy and highly sensitive being is coming from the world of psychology, and an empath is coming from the world of spiritual healing. An estimated, I got from a website, because I wanted numbers, because I like facts and figures. Hi, Taurus. An estimated 2 to 4% of the population is an empath. The website that I got it from actually said that they actually suspect that the numbers might actually be lower than that. I don't know their reasoning for that, but whatever. It's 2 to 4% of the population, while 15 to 20% of the population are highly sensitive people. So now there's obviously, as I mentioned before, crossover. There are people who are clearly an empath and are also a highly sensitive person in the psychological world, like myself, for instance. Psychologically, I'm a highly sensitive person, but spiritually, I'm an empath, while others are clearly just a highly sensitive person and empathetic, but are not an empath. And there are some people who are in the middle who may not have fully accepted or learned their gift and are just kind of showing that highly sensitive person part, but still can once in a while be able to pick up intuitively other people's energies, feelings, illnesses, etc. So the lines get blurry very, very often. Highly sensitive people, their wiring is biological and psychological, as I said before. An empath's wiring is energetic, and psychological, affecting the body in various ways. Hence why I was bringing up like the fibromyalgia as well. So a highly sensitive person will be able to kind of almost do the same thing that empath's doing if they're just a highly sensitive person, and get themselves in the same messes or situations, whether it be with an energy vampire or a narcissist or whatever. But again, the main difference is how we pick that up. Empathy itself is just something that we have to have the capacity to feel, except sociopaths, obviously. It is, important also for us to be able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes so that we can relate to what's going on with them. And that's why sometimes empaths or highly sensitive people will, when they're trying to help somebody, try and relate a situation that they went through to the situation that the person they're helping with. And sometimes that other person might think that that's weird or bad and perceive it wrong, but in our minds, we see it as we're trying to show that we're completely empathetic and not just sympathizing with you, but we can completely relate. Or we're kind of trying to, like, intellectually, I guess, try and explain to ourselves why we're actually feeling what they're feeling as empaths. Like, we're actually feeling it. Now, what is a situation I've been through, For example, if a friend loses a loved one, you might recall what it is like to lose your loved one, and through that recollection, feel grief for your friend. That's empathy, okay? But let's say you haven't been through a similar situation. It's going to be hard for somebody to just empathize. They can try if they're a highly sensitive person, but they're not going to be fully able to. Well, an empath is going to be able to. Another difference is that an empath can feel the physical issues that somebody's going on, or that somebody, or their health. An empathetic / highly sensitive person is not going to be able to pick up on that. So basically, empathy itself, whether you're a highly sensitive person or empath, is the ability to share in someone else's experience. An empath does it consciously or subconsciously. I personally think somebody that's empathetic or a highly sensitive person does it consciously. Another difference is being an empath is an intuitive gift, just like, as I said before, a psychic ability. Just like being a medium or a channel, and when utilized effectively, has the capacity to facilitate healing for loved ones, communities, and our planets. Hence why they tend to be environmentalists, animal rights, labor activists, feminists, etc. So are highly sensitive beings, but an empath can feel everything that's going on. There's also a scale of empath, which is going back to that gray area between, are you just a highly sensitive person, or are you a highly sensitive person and an empath? It's just like some people are better at math or better at memorizing historical facts than other people are. But with those are practice skills, But an empath, all you have to do is ground yourself and open up your intuition. And sometimes you don't even need to do that. You're still going to feel it, but it's going to be a world of chaos, as I explained earlier. It's more of like this freaky deaky weird thing that's constantly going on in your life, and you just need to get away. So, I mean, that's my long, rambling explanation of what an empath is, and I hope you understand the difference between an empath and a highly sensitive person. I can give another example. Like, as an empath, before, like, when I wasn't owning it, you could say, and was going through a lot of struggles personally and taking on all that emotion, and was really, really drained out, and was in college, and just a lot was going on. If I were to go to a gathering or a party with more than 5 people, I would be that person in the corner, kind of just not trying to talk to anyone unless they came and talked to me first. I always was that person. And highly sensitive people can be like that at times too. But I think empaths tend to be more like that. We're also very observant. We tend to observe the room. When we talk, as I said before, we're very expressive and histrionic, and as you see in my videos, very rambling, because it's very hard for us to like process a lot of things because there's so much going on. Highly again, it's such a gray area. It's really hard to differentiate the two. But again, it goes back to the basic thing. One is a psychic ability, and one is just being plain highly evolved human who's able to empathize instead of sympathize with a person. And highly sensitive people tend to be more empathetic on a regular basis than the average person. Well, an empath, we just know. And oh my god, it's extremely intense and scary. I'm gonna probably do a lot of videos more on empaths, and since this is like only my second video total and my first video on empaths, it was really hard for me to decide what to really discuss on it, so I just gave a long, rambling explanation of what an empath is. In the future, it will be much more outlined and, specific topics on empaths, like, are there suicide rates? I hate to say that, but I don't want to be negative. And like I said, the next video is, are you an empath, and how to ground and block and protect yourself. There are many, many traits to being an empath, but I'm not going to bring all of them up. I'm also considering eventually creating my own quiz that will score like where you are on the empath level. So that's all for today. Keep it awkward, fellow empaths, and no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that was my basic summary, and even my basic summary ended up being a lot longer. I thought it was gonna be like a 7-minute video, and here it's 30 minutes. So I hope you enjoy. In other news, I am going to be starting to sell my first product next week, and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day, and I love you all. Mwah.